Good evening and welcome to the 2023 Municipal Candidate Forum for the town of Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, and sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Dare County. My name is Jamie Wegner. I will be the coordinator for this forum, and I'd like to thank you all, as well as the candidates, for participating in this event this evening. I wanted to let everybody know that we will be videotaping this event, and it will be available on our website as well on Current TV. We'll be kicking off by informing you all the League of Women Voters is celebrating its 103rd anniversary, and we are proud to continue the tradition of bringing candidates and voters together in this way to empower you as the voter. I will now be introducing the moderator for this event, Amanda Hooper.
Thank you, Jamie. Good evening. I am a member of League of Women Voters of Dare, and I live in Collington. The League is a nonprofit, nonpartisan political organization. It encourages informed and active participation in all levels of government, works to increase understanding of major public policy, influences public policy through education and advocacy. The League maintains a strict, nonpartisan policy. It neither endorses nor opposes any political party or candidate. The League participates in the Positive Campaign Project and has requested that each candidate tonight take the Code of Campaign Ethics pledge. We prohibit campaigning or campaign literature in the forum room. Please turn off all cell phones or electronic devices. Texting is prohibited. League members participating tonight are greeters, who will also retrieve your questions, Kira Walters, Tiana Stathis, and Mary Jane Lazinski. Question reviewers are Tess Judge and Macy Chava, and our timekeeper is Kenan Watkins. We encourage a lively and respectful discussion. If you think of a question during the forum, please raise your hand. One of our staff will hand you a question card. Please include your name and town of residence or business. Anonymous questions will not be asked. I would now like to introduce the Town of Kitty Hawk candidates. There are 2 council seats up for election on November 7th, and there are 3 council candidates on your ballot. Present this evening are David Hines, incumbent, Dylan Tillett, challenger, and Ron Tumalo, challenger. The format for the forum: each candidate will have 3 minutes for an opening statement. The timekeeper will signal when the candidate has 30 seconds remaining. The timekeeper will stand if the candidate is past the allotted time. Next, candidates will respond to questions from the audience. Questions were either submitted prior to the forum by voters, or they may be submitted during the forum. They are signed with their town of residence or business location. League reviewers have reviewed and will review questions for clarity and to avoid duplication. We believe this procedure affords the greatest variety of subjects to be covered in the allotted time. If your question is asked and credit is given to someone else, it simply means you were one of many who wanted to hear this response. I will read the question as written and identify the submitter. The League advocates positive campaign practices, and we reserve the right to admit any question that we view as a personal attack. Questions may be addressed to a specific candidate or all candidates. Questions directed to a specific candidate may be answered by any candidate if desired. 2 minutes are allotted for responses. The timer will signal the candidate when 30 seconds remains and will stand if the candidate goes over the allotted time. Opportunities will not be extended to those who initially pass on a question. Candidates cannot follow up on after their initial response. Only 1 statement is allowed per question. Finally, each candidate is entitled to a 2-minute closing statement. Before we started, candidates drew numbers to establish the order for their opening statement. We will reverse that order for our closing statements. We will begin with the opening statement from Ron Tumalo.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. As mentioned, my name is Ron Tumalo, and I want to thank all of you for coming out this evening. And I especially want to thank the League of Women Voters. for organizing these events, not just tonight, but across the county. We've been to a couple of these, and they've been very well done and very respectful and very helpful. I've been a property owner here in Kitty Hawk since 2009 and a resident since 2019. I relocated here with my wife after retiring from the federal government after 38 years of service, 4 of those years on active duty with the Marine Corps. I have 2 sons, a wonderful daughter-in-law, and I am a proud new grandfather. I've been coming to the Outer Banks, vacationing and visiting my family here since 1986. And like many of you, I've witnessed a tremendous growth and change that has taken place and continues to occur. I've never been one to sit on the sidelines, and I've always been looking for opportunities to get involved in the community. Shortly after moving here in 2019, I joined the Kitty Hawk Fire Department, where I currently serve as a volunteer firefighter. Serving is important to me, which is why I decided to run for a seat on this council. If I'm fortunate enough to be elected, I will give it everything I've got. I will commit myself to helping the mayor, supporting the mayor and all the members of the town council, the leadership team, and the town staff to continuously improve and build on the work that we've already accomplished for the residents here of Kitty Hawk. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Next, we will hear from Dylan Tillett.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for coming out here tonight. I see a lot of faces in the audience that I recognize, and I also see some faces of some folks I'd like to meet. I think the community involvement shown here tonight is a great thing. First of all, I'd like to thank the League of Women's Voters for hosting this event tonight. My name is Dylan Tillett, and I'm a native to Kitty Hawk. I was born and raised in this beautiful town. I went to elementary, middle, and high school in the Dare County school systems, received an engineering degree from East Carolina University, and I've been blessed enough to be able to establish a career here and raise a family. My wife and I have 3 young children who I believe love this town just as much as I do. I work locally with an established engineering firm that specializes in areas of development such as commercial and residential site plan design, stormwater management systems, wastewater systems, drinking water systems, land use planning, and much more. I also served in the Kitty Hawk Planning Board from the end of 2013 to 2016. I'm running for a position on the Kitty Hawk Town Council because I believe that I can bring great insight to the current team. I thrive in working in a team environment, and my experience and knowledge bring several benefits to the current council. Kitty Hawk is an amazing place, and I'm proud to be a citizen here. Between growing up and working here in the community, having prior experience with the Kitty Hawk Planning Board, and raising a family here locally, I feel strongly that I bring valuable understanding and skill to the table. Most importantly, I want to be a part of keeping Kitty Hawk's unique character so that our children can grow up in the same beautiful town that we did. I look forward to tonight, and I look forward to the opportunity to be your town councilman. Thank you.
Thank you, Dylan. Next, we'll hear from David Hines.
Well, I'm not very good at the opening statements, but anyway, here we go. So David Hines, I already currently sit on town council. I'm running again because we still have a lot of unfinished things to complete. The list is long. We have a lot of, there's always issues, but we have some right now that we need to stay on top of. Currently sit on the Dare County Planning Board and have for years. I was on the Board of Adjustments here in Kitty Hawk for 2 years. Also am the secretary of the Dare County Tourism Board. So being involved is what I like to do to keep, I care about where I live, so I want to be involved in all aspects. I too appreciate Kitty Hawk and what it is, and we have a unique area here unlike the rest of the Outer Banks. It's very important to me to keep it the way it is, with controlled growth, and more importantly, keeping taxes down and listening to what the residents want, because that's what we're here for. That's what I have to say tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we will have questions from the public. Our first question tonight is a question from the League. If you are a challenger, please describe why you are running. If you are an incumbent, please describe why you feel like you should stay. First, we hear from Ron Tumalo.
I am running for town council simply because I live it here, just like my colleagues to my right. There are a lot of opportunities here. There's a lot of challenges. We sort of sit around and we listen to things happening on the news, and we come to town meetings, and we think, hey, we've got all these huge problems. What are we going to do about them? So I see this as an opportunity to bring the years of experience that I have in federal service to tackling some of those large problems. One of the biggest concerns that we're going to be challenged with here, and I suspect will be coming with other questions, is the problem we have here with affordable housing, and also with the threat to our waterways. I've sat here several meetings and listened to some very, very passionate pleas and some good cases to preserve Kitty Hawk the way it is. And that's a good opportunity to do that. But before we start to step out on doing a lot of that other sorts of building, we really need to focus on the infrastructure. I've lived in a part of the state of Virginia for a long time, and I've watched things happen there that could happen here. We're so focused on growth, we're so focused on housing, that we don't really take the time to focus on the infrastructure. I've had to take 1 hour to drive 16 miles when I lived just outside of Washington, D.C. I don't want to see that happen here. So one of the main things I'd like to do is become part of the solution to resolving some of the problems we have. This is a very critical time for the town of Kitty Hawk and a critical time for Dare County, and I want to be part of the process of making it better.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Next, we hear from Dylan Tillett.
One of the biggest reasons I decided to challenge is, two of the biggest reasons, is two main points: involvement and our youth. I feel like I'm capable of serving on the town council based on my experience and what I've seen. A lot of times we're on the other side of the table presenting to the council, understanding local ordinances and zonings. The second reason is our youth. I'm always thinking, what's this place going to be like when my kids grow up? And that's important to me. Seeing this place grow up from when I was young to now has been interesting. And I want to just be a part of making a difference in Kitty Hawk and helping them lead in the right direction. And that's it.
Thank you, Dylan. Next, we hear from David Hines.
Well, I'm running again because I've enjoyed the time that I've had on the board. Coming into this, I had no idea of what it was really like to be involved in on council and running a town. There's a lot that goes into it. You have to accept the challenges and learn how to work through them. That's probably the biggest thing is trying to listen to everybody and understand what's best for all. And by doing so, it's rewarding when you can see everybody generally happy with the direction that the town is going in. Is it always going to be perfect? No. But you can strive to do the best you can. But again, you have to do you can't have your own agenda. You have to have listening to what people are asking they want to see in the town, like infrastructure, waterways. It's all important. As we've seen more development, obviously that creates more stormwater issues. I also like being involved with the town because just like today, I was a part of getting almost $400,000 for the connector trail up here in Kitty Hawk. Almost another $282,000 for everyone's playground at Kitty Hawk Elementary School. We did that just this morning, and I want to continue to do those things. So that's why I'm asking. That's why I'm running again.
Thank you, David.
You're welcome.
Our next question is from Terry Gore, a resident of Kitty Hawk. And also, gentlemen, if you need me to repeat a question, please ask. Please describe your leadership experience in municipal government and how that will make you effective in executing your platform. We'll start with David Hines.
Can you say that one more time? I'm sorry.
Absolutely. Please describe your leadership experience in municipal government and how that will make you effective in executing your platform.
I don't know that it's necessarily me being the leader. It's a team environment with everybody I sit up here with. I think being effective goes back into going through the challenges of what you face up here, not just on a monthly basis, but on a daily basis. My phone, I get messages all the time from residents needing this or asking for that. And I want to hear that because I don't know what everybody wants if I'm not being told what they want to see. So I don't know if that makes an effective leader, but hopefully it makes the residents get what they deserve.
Thank you, David. Next, we will hear from Ron Tumalo.
Same question?
Yes, same question.
Okay, so leadership, in my opinion, I think leadership occurs at all levels. As a member of the town council, the executive here is the mayor. And I think the mayor expects a certain level of leadership from everyone on the council. When it comes to dealing with municipal government, I've never been in a municipal capacity, but in the federal service and in the military, there's time for direct leadership and there's time for consensus. I think we're more focused here on consensus because part of being on the town council, I've been to some of these meetings. I don't envy you when people really get up here and they're really angry about what's going on. But I think if you try to please everyone, you please no one. So we really need to take a hard look at some of these issues, interact with folks, right? Sit down, have discussions, be transparent, be resilient, and really try to focus on what they need to have done and represent them. And I think that's all part of being an effective leader. But it does bring its challenges. But again, it's sometimes you have to do what I call would be sort of an adaptive leader or implement adaptive leadership because every situation is just a little bit different.
Thank you, Ron. Next, we hear from Dylan Tillett.
So I mentioned serving on the planning board, and that is a form of government, I believe, a smaller level than town council. But in the private sector, as far as leadership, you know, as a project manager at an engineering firm, we're constantly driving the project forward, talking with people, listening with clients and municipalities, helping everything move in the right direction, taking everything into consideration. As David mentioned, it's not really leadership, it's a team environment up here, I believe. And Ron's right, you know, there's a structure of authority. But I do think together as a team we're going to solve more as a team than you do individually.
That's right.
Thank you. Thank you, Dylan. Our next question is from Rosemarie Dosher from the Outer Banks Realtor Association. How important do you feel it is to answer candidate surveys from local organizations? The realtors sent out 30 requests and have only received 18 responses. What is your reaction? We'll start with Dylan Tillett.
All right. So I'll be honest, I did receive the OBAR survey, and I did not fill it out and submit it. And my process of thinking on that was what I understood after reading the letter is it was only available to members of OBAR. And I wanted my survey information to be present to anybody in general. I did not necessarily a group that was just paying a fee to get to access the membership. When League of Women's Voters asked us to do the Vote 411, I was more than happy because I knew that would be public on a website. I didn't necessarily want to hold back and have information that some folks couldn't access.
Thank you, Dylan. Next, we will hear from David Hines.
Well, I didn't either, but I've been a real estate broker here for 23 years. So I feel like my membership, my colleagues at the Association of Realtors understand my position on things that I believe in. So to answer her question, you know, being in the business, I understand what the issues are with facing, you know, the Association of Realtors as well. And there's challenges there as well.
Thank you, David. Next, we'll hear from Ron Tumalo.
Okay, thank you. I did receive the packet. I received it on time in my mailbox. Looks like right about August 7th or 8th. I specifically chose not to answer this survey and return it for several reasons. Even though it said, and I brought it with me, because I had a feeling that this might come up because I felt bad that I didn't respond. But they were very specific, and they wanted a response to question 16 of the survey if we wanted to be considered for campaign funding. This survey needs to be returned by August 23rd, 2023 to be eligible for those funds. I chose not to accept any funds from anybody for this candidate, for my candidacy. I'm funding this myself, and I want to be beholden to no one other than the citizens of Kitty Hawk. And I was also a little surprised as I read through the survey questionnaire that a particular question on question 8 I was surprised to see that given the date of the survey. How do you feel about the adoption of legislation by the state that mandates the development of year-round construction that supersedes local community opposition to such projects? I thought, wow, this was August 7th, and here we are September 19th just hearing about it. So even though I chose initially not to respond based on the campaign funding issue, I'm kind of glad I didn't respond to that. So that's where I'll kind of leave that one.
Thank you, Ron. Our next question is from the League. Do you think that municipal governments can impact the affordable housing shortage along the Outer Banks, and how? We'll start with David Hines.
I don't know that I can answer that question with pending litigation going on right now. I mean,
Not a lot of people know about it, so you might want to share the details.
well, all 6 municipalities have signed and filed a lawsuit in Wake County against the budget bill that just came out, telling everybody they cannot regulate, the towns can't regulate building height, setbacks. I mean, they come in, we have to expedite a permit, basically saying we're going to do whatever. We have no control, right? They've taken the control away from us. And by doing that, they've taken the control away from the residents, not just in Kitty Hawk, but all municipalities. I don't agree with it. I think you should have to go through the same process that everybody else has to go through. And there's procedures in place for a reason. So I don't know how much I can get into that conversation with the pending litigation being filed, but it's a problem.
Thank you, David. Next, we hear from Dylan Tillett.
Can you repeat the question one more time?
Absolutely. Do you think that municipal governments can impact the affordable housing shortage along the Outer Banks, and how?
I think local municipal governments can play a part in impacting that. The housing issue, I definitely recognize that it's an issue. I don't think it's a Kitty Hawk issue. I think it's more of a Dare County issue, and possibly larger than that. I think everybody's going to have to work together, the towns and the county, and possibly the state and whatnot. I think it's going to be a long road to get to the right solution. It may not be one particular solution. It might be several. But I'm willing to work with the council and come to a solution. And I think together, as long as everybody works together, we can find a solution for this. It might not be overnight, but it can happen if everybody works together.
Thank you, Dylan. Next, we will hear from Ron Tumalo.
So I agree with Mr. Hines a little bit on there's some issue here with the legality, but I will comment, and I will comment also that I think it's a shame that we've been forced to file a lawsuit. It's already cast a dark shadow over one of the most critical issues this county may have faced in our history, who knows. But I think municipal governments can do something about it, and it ties back to that last question, is leadership. And having a little bit of foresight and a little bit of optimism and belief in your community, right? So we have a lot of people out there. The only ones that are really suffering are the people sitting there making less than 80% of the median income around here. They're all sitting here waiting for us to make a decision. So 3 different times in Wanchese, Bowsertown, Nags Head, Dare County tried to do the right thing, and everybody kind of pushed back on it, right? I think, as I understand, at a high level. And I think there's the opportunity now. This is not just a one jurisdiction problem, as Dylan pointed out. And the biggest thing that the municipalities can do is demonstrate some leadership, right? Which is perfect because, as I understand, Dare County is already putting a task force together to address housing. I think it's a little too late, but still, it's an effective opportunity to get it done. And not only should that task force include members of all the municipalities, it should include builders and real estate developers, and perhaps even members of the community that might be waiting on some of that housing. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ron. Our next question is from Marcy Rees. What about Kitty Hawk is most in need of fixing? What should the council do about it? We'll start with Dylan Tillett.
What is most in need of fixing? I think, generally speaking, if you asked everybody in Kitty Hawk, the majority of answers you can get is folks are happy here. I don't necessarily think that there's one particular thing that's broken or wrong. I think there's things there's always stuff we can improve. And some of that could be storm resilience. Some of that could be more pedestrian access. We talked about affordable housing. There are several issues to work on, but I don't think there's one particular thing that's just screaming that's a problem. I look forward to, I think we learn about these problems by folks stepping up and talking and communicating and getting involved. And I look forward to hearing more as we progress. And if I am elected to council, listening to these people and addressing the concerns as they come down the pipe.
Thank you, Dylan. Next, we will hear from Ron Tumalo.
Yes, thank you. So housing aside, one of the biggest things I think should be improved, and this is based on what I observe every day and what I hear from my neighbors, right, and what I see. One of the things I would love to see happen here is more multi-use paths and sidewalks. I understand that the town is really making some good progress on that with the multi-use paths up on the bypass. That's all well and good, but I'll bet you they're probably going to be asphalt because of the cost involved, which again gets back to the water runoff problem. So what I'd like to see, our town is 8.3 square miles. There's no reason why this shouldn't be walkable by sidewalk any direction you go in. I've seen so many young children riding their bicycles down Kitty Hawk Road with fishing poles stretched across the handlebars. And it makes my heart skip a beat. As a volunteer fireman, I've been to many incidents on that bypass, to include some fatalities, where people are stuck in that turn lane. Seniors, entire families with young children and strollers make that next cross to the next set of double lanes. We have to do something about that. And I know it's expensive, but we don't have to take care of these problems alone. There is opportunities for federal and state grants, and we need to ask for them. And we need to try and accomplish that. Another thing I'd like to see, and it's a bit of a pie-in-the-sky issue, is I would love to see pedestrian walkovers on that bypass so that our residents and visitors can get across that dangerous stretch of highway. And I would prioritize the first one, if I were given the opportunity to do that, right down here at Woods Road, so that our children can cross that street safely to get to Kitty Hawk Elementary School. And again, I live back in Kitty Hawk Landing. Speed limit back there is 25 miles an hour. On a good day, you might have half the residents driving 25 miles an hour. So I'd like to see the speed limit reduced to 45 miles an hour. Thank you very much. I see the stop sign right there.
Thank you, Ron. Next, we'll hear from David Hines.
Well, we just got done doing a land use plan. I think there's things that need to be implemented based on some of the recommendations with the land use plan. As we all know, Kitty Hawk is unique to itself. It's separate from the rest of the Outer Banks. You get back into the village, it's just unique. And we need to keep it that way. But at the same time, we also need to be constantly evaluating what worked in the 80s, didn't work in the 90s, maybe not work in 2000. So we need to change with it a little bit. I think as we've grown and there's more people here, we need to make sure that our fire and police is well-staffed. We're trying to work on the police department up here where the Centera building is. That's going to be an exciting thing for the residents and for everybody. I'd like to see some more EMT type services up on this end of the beach. When we bought the Centera, when the town bought the Centera property, we're able to get another medical provider that's coming in. We're able to keep the pharmacist there, all the while having the room to expand the police department. So we constantly need to be looking at these challenges that we face and as I think as a community come together with what works and what doesn't. Not everybody's always going to be on the same page, but it's the overall consensus of what's best for everybody.
Thank you, David. Our next question is from Robert Healy, a resident of Kitty Hawk. What is your position on the proposed Saga development in Southern Shores at the foot of the Wright Memorial Bridge and the potential impacts on Kitty Hawk traffic? We will begin with Ron Tumalo.
Well, just so happens I watched that town hall meeting when all those residents came over there and were expressing their concerns about that Saga project. And it kind of gets back to, so my opinion is, well, it's a good thing, but I think had the citizens of Southern Shores, because that's on Southern Shores, had the citizens of Southern Shores had the opportunity to engage at the very beginning, they may have had the opportunity to leverage their requirements and their needs with Saga so that some of those luxury condominiums that are going to be on top of those commercial mixed-use buildings could be for considered affordable housing instead of luxury condominiums. So it's going to create problems, but I do actually see both sides. If Southern Shores ordinances permitted that property, that package the way it was submitted, then they're kind of over a barrel. All right, so there's not much we can do about it. That's a Southern Shores issue, but you know what? I think we need to take a different approach with a lot of these big developers that want to build here. You're right, this is a beautiful place and there's no place else like it. But if you want to build here, you need to earn the right and the privilege to build here. And if you're going to do something like that, you need to build something that's going to help the community, not just your own financial interest. And I think it's, so hey, yeah, it's going to be a bit of an eyesore, but they've got different sewage requirements over there. But it's really hard to say that something that happens in Southern Shores or Kildover Hills doesn't affect us. I think whatever happens in any of these jurisdictions, because we're so closely tied, affects us. But there's not much we can do about it at this point.
Thank you, Ron. Mm-hmm. Next, we'll hear from David Hines.
Well, I mean, I believe it is a Southern Shores issue outside of the traffic question. I would think they would have to do a traffic study of some sort, or at least that could be made probably a requirement from their board. If it's zoned for that area to do that, then that's within their right to do it. I slightly have a different approach. I'm a big property rights person, so I don't think implementing onto a developer that they must do affordable housing in a development is the answer either. We all recognize that we need it, but to try to enforce that on a developer during development of a piece of real estate, I don't know that that's the right thing to do either.
Thank you, David. Next, we'll hear from Dylan Tillett.
Can you repeat the question one more time?
Absolutely. What is your position on the proposed Saga development in Southern Shores at the foot of the Wright Memorial Bridge and its potential impacts on Kitty Hawk traffic?
I would like to pass on this question due to being, I do not work on this project directly, but I do work with the firm that is associated with that project, and I'd like to pass on that.
Thank you, Dylan. Our next question is from Nellie Healy, a resident of Kitty Hawk. What is your position on the recent amendment slipped into the state budget that singles out Dare County and upends the town's control on zoning and will allow the state to determine what is built in the community? We'll start with Dylan Tillett.
Well, first of all, I'd like to applaud the mayor and the existing town council for doing what they've done and standing up against that. I don't believe the state should be taking away rights to the municipality. We have our own zoning ordinance on purpose. That's not by accident. The folks in Kitty Hawk like it, and it's there for a reason. For the state to come and bypass that, I think is wrong. And that's my stance on that.
Thank you, Dylan. Next, we'll hear from David Hines.
Pretty sure I'm going to need to pass on that one as well due to pending litigation that we're involved in.
Thank you, David. Next, we'll hear from Ron Tumalo.
I echo Dylan's opinion on that. I think the mayor has demonstrated rock-solid leadership in getting our resolution out there quick, saying, hey, you can't do that. And I think it's appropriate to have the lawsuit. Again, it's too bad that we have to do this. Having worked with the federal budget cycle, I know if you're given money by statute or other legal means of transfer, you have to execute that funds and spend that money. And my concern is, and I don't believe it would come to this, and I hope it doesn't, but we have to make sure that at some point this gets resolved and we get to building the houses, right? It might be too late, who knows, but I think it's important that this get resolved and that we try and figure out a good solution. And I'm hopeful that the task force that's put together by Dare County is going to be able to take action on this. And I'm hoping that this lawsuit won't slow things down, because this is too critical a topic to be delayed any further.
Thank you, Ron. I apologize for my mispronunciation of this last name. Our next question is from Charlotte Pedigo, a resident of Kitty Hawk. How can we preserve the natural trees along the Kitty Hawk bypass? And how can we limit development of more big box stores? We'll begin with Ron Tumalo.
Ma'am, could you repeat the first part of that question?
Absolutely. How can we preserve the natural trees along the Kitty Hawk bypass?
Natural trees.
And
okay.
how can we limit development of more big box stores?
Well, I love my trees, especially my live oaks. And I got to tell you, I really think if I ever get the opportunity to get on the town council, I'm going to do everything I can to declare the live oak our town tree. And I think we should implement ordinance to protect it. So if you have a live oak on your property, it happens to be in a footprint of your house, you need to cut it down, cut it down. But other ways, hands off the trees. As far as commercial development goes, if those ordinances there, that ordinance is there. I'm not a big fan of the Sugar Kingdom or whatever planet that's over there. I look at the size of those buildings and I think, wow, wouldn't it be nice if that were half Sugar Kingdom and half affordable condos up above it, right? So one way to do that, and I'm no expert on ordinances, right, might be to look at something, what I do believe is called mixed use. So when you want to have more commercial development, especially along the bypass, it needs to be considered for mixed use, where you would have commercial development on the first floor, and you could incorporate residential development up top. may sound like a crazy idea, but it's worth an ask to anybody that really wants to set up a business here in Kitty Hawk.
Thank you, Ron. Next, we'll hear from Dylan Tillett.
Can you repeat the question one more time, please?
Absolutely. How can we preserve the natural trees along Kitty Hawk Bypass? How can we limit development of more big box stores?
So I'll start with the trees. I agree with Ron. I think being able to identify these trees and declare them as important in our ordinance would be a really neat start to that. There's ways around that if you want to develop a lot, and there is the tree in the way. There's other towns and counties have mitigation requirements. If you, depending on the size of the tree, is what you have to replant in a different area of your yard. And incorporating something like that into the ordinance, I think would be a really neat thing. That way, because I believe in property rights, like David mentioned earlier. If you buy a piece of property and want to put a house on it, you should be able to do that. I don't think a tree should get in the way of that. However, I think the trees are important, and if you could mitigate them and also only take out what you need to, I think that would be an important way of handling that. Reducing big box stores, I don't know if you can reduce the ones we already have, but what we can do moving forward, I think an idea to mitigate some of that is incorporating architectural standards. Instead of just a big concrete wall, cedar shake, make it architectural pleasing, more points on the roofs, more overhangs here, make it look a little more like what we want to make it look like, instead of a town further away that we wouldn't want to look like. I think that's a good way to handle that method and moving forward while incorporating and making everybody happy.
Thank you, Dylan. Next, we'll hear from David Hines.
I want to echo something Dylan said. Having a building firm as well, I've literally moved a home on a different part of the lot to save a live oak tree. I believe Kitty Hawk may have been completely clear cut at some point in its history. That should never obviously happen again. I don't think it would, but protecting the trees are important. As far as the box stores go, and we're currently beginning work with the planning department on some architectural design standards so that type of building can't happen again. I have no problem with it being there. It was their right to have it there, but we can't have it looking like that. So by designing architectural standards, I don't want to be too restrictive on it, but it needs to conform with the town of Kitty Hawk. Cedar Shakes is a good part of that too. So we're beginning work on that now. That's kind of new that we just started discussing that, but it is something that we're going to move forward on doing.
Thank you, David. Our next question is from Susie Walters, a resident of the town of Nags Head. What is your opinion about our municipal boards being nonpartisan? Why would you support a change, or why not? We'll begin with David Hines.
I believe it's whatever. I mean, if it needs to be changed, do a referendum on it, whatever the voters want to see. I mean, I don't know that partisan politics should matter. It's about what you're talking about. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat, or how you're registered. You have to work with everybody. So for me personally, I don't pay attention to how somebody's affiliated. As far as municipal boards are concerned, I mean, if people are going to vote because you're registered one way or the other for that person, then that's not the right way to vote.
Thank you. Next, we hear from Ron Tumalo.
I sort of agree. Put it to a referendum. If it were and I were to vote, I would vote to keep this body nonpartisan. Part of the reason I'm running is because this, to me, is the purest form of government, local government. Every morning I get up and all we hear about is this nonsense that's going on with the Republican, the Democrat, and who wants to be an independent. And I'm sick of it. I want to be able to get things done. So again, it's let the people choose. It'd be my preference to keep this a nonpartisan body and keep local municipal government nonpartisan.
Thank you. Next, we hear from Dylan Tillett.
And I would agree with that. I don't think parties have any business on a municipal level. We're here to work together, and too often do the difference in parties end up butting heads just because they're on different sides of the table. I think we're going to get more done working together than we are arguing which side of the fence we are on. I've always voted for the man. I've always voted or woman. I've always voted for the subject matter. I believe in voting for what's right, and I don't think parties have a place on a municipal level like that.
Thank you. Our next question is from Nellie Healy, a resident of Kitty Hawk. What can be done to bring a community center to Kitty Hawk? We'll start with Dylan Tillett.
What can be done to bring a community center to Kitty Hawk? Well, that's a good question. I think there's lots of options there. I mean, first and foremost, if a community center would need land, and land needs to be purchased. If this is something that the people of Kitty Hawk are looking for, I think they should speak up at the town council meeting so the council can hear them. And if this is a direction that the people want, then they need to know about that. And that process can be handled. I think that would happen through one step at a time. And the first step is getting that question out there to the council and starting the process with that.
Thank you, Dylan. Next, we'll hear from Ron Tumalo.
If I'm not mistaken, the need or desire for a community center is called out in the land use plan under one of the recreation titles or somewhere in there. But I actually would love to see a community center here. I actually put that in as one of my priorities in the 411 website. You'll be able to see what I had to say about that when it goes online. But I don't think that's just a Kitty Hawk issue, because I think that's more of a county issue. We don't have to do this alone, is what I'm trying to say, right? So we got this beautiful community center, the Tillett Center, I do believe, over in Manteo. We got the Baum Center in Kildover Hills. Well, it would be nice to have something in Kitty Hawk, and not just for, a place to have a library. I see that as value added to the residents of the town of Kitty Hawk, and who knows, you might even be able to make some revenue off it when the tourists come in. It'd be great to have a center with a rock climbing wall, a facility to have before school and after school programs. But I do believe that that's something that we can work on jointly with the county, right? Because that's not going to be a cheap proposition, right? Because it's probably going to have to be outdoor space, indoor space. But I think it's a great opportunity, and it starts with having the conversation and seeing where we can go with it.
Thank you, Ron. Next, we hear from David Hines.
I think it's a great idea. And we currently have a couple areas that we share or we have in conjunction with Dare County that, one specifically could work. I mean, I'd have to look at we'd have to do some surveying, site planning and things like that. But, as far as finding the land, that could be a little bit of a different challenge. But if we're going to do that, I'm all for it. I think we need to start with what we may already currently own and see if we can fit it there, or we are jointly in with Dare County already.
Thank you, David. Audience, if you have any additional questions, now is the time to submit them. As of right now, this will be our last question for the evening. What is your vision for the future of Kitty Hawk, and how do we get there? We'll start with Ron Tumalo.
Well, again, one more time, I'm going to plug the adopted land use plan, because to be honest with you, that's one of the reasons I got motivated to run for town council. Because having not had a ton of municipal experience, I thought, wow, what kind of a roadmap are we going to have to follow to make this community better? It's already a great, wonderful place to live. But I want to make sure that it's a wonderful place to live for my new granddaughter, and Dillett's children, and everybody else's children in here, right? And when you got a plan that really puts together a pretty solid foundation through 2050, I think that's what we'll use. And I would encourage everybody in here to go to the town website and take a look at that land use plan. It wasn't put together in a vacuum, right? A survey went out, citizens contributed, there were several meetings. I attended a meeting here on it. If you read it, I think you'd be pretty impressed with it. And so to answer your question, I think if you look at that plan, we need to focus on it. It talks about maintaining our identity as a village, and it talks about smart growth. It covers all the things that we really kind of talked about tonight, sort of at the macro level, but it's a great guide, and that's what I think we should be focusing on.
Thank you, Ron. Next, we will hear from David Hines.
Sorry, can you repeat the question one more time, please?
Absolutely. What is your vision for the future of Kitty Hawk, and how do we get there?
I think the biggest vision I have is keeping Kitty Hawk, right? I mean, that's why we live here. And although we're going to have growth, we have to keep it controlled. And I appreciate the land use plan. I think there's a lot of great things in there, but it always needs to be reevaluated. What's good today may not work in 5 years and vice versa. So the vision to keep Kitty Hawk the way it is going to be constantly changing and evolving, right? I mean, you have to look at what you're doing at the time, and you have to have vision, though. You have to forecast out. Don't get me wrong, but I think the effort to keep Kitty Hawk the way it is by virtue of us sticking together as a community and talking with each other and agreeing together what we do want to do and not want to do.
Thank you, David. Next, we hear from Dylan Tillett.
So my vision for the future of Kitty Hawk, I'd have to agree with Ron and David on this. People are happy here, and I don't want to change that. I think growth is inevitable. I think if we monitor it on responsible levels, we stay on top of the ordinance as things change. Things change. Different rules within the state, within the federal, they come down. But adapting and sticking to our guns with keeping the uniqueness of this town, I think that's the most important. And how do we get there? We listen. We listen to the folks who speak up in meetings. We listen to them at the street. When we see them at the stop sign, at the grocery store, dropping off our kids at school, I think listening to people is going to be the best way to how we're going to intake the new data that comes in, and how we're going to keep following what people want. That's what I have.
Thank you, Dylan. We have one last question. This is from Nellie Healy, a resident of Kitty Hawk. What federal monies have the municipalities taken advantage of, and how is that money being directed? We're going to start with David Hines.
Well, we received COVID funds, which we were using towards the new police department. I think that money, it definitely helped us as taxpayers, right? We didn't have to take it from somewhere else. It was there for us. As far as other federal funds, I'm not aware of a ton of federal funds that we've received. That's probably the most specific one that I remember. And that money's been utilized well.
Thank you, David. Next, we'll hear from Ron Tumalo.
I have no insight into what federal funds the town of Kitty Hawk would have received, but I have the utmost confidence that when it comes in, it'll be executed according to plan.
Thank you, Ron. Next, we'll hear from Dylan Tillett.
And can you repeat the question one more time, please?
Absolutely. What federal monies have the municipalities taken advantage of, and how is that money being directed?
Yeah, I don't have insight on the federal funds that Kitty Hawk or anybody has taken advantage of. I do know, I try to follow Kitty Hawk's financial statements that when they pass the budget and what's available to the public at least. And I feel confident that Kitty Hawk does a really well job of taking care of their budget. I remember several, probably this was years ago when we paid off the fire station early. And I can appreciate the smart budgeting that the town does. I don't think we spend frivolously. I don't think we overspend. I think we're smart, and I would plan to stay in that same path.
Thank you, Dylan. Now we will hear the candidates' closing remarks. We will go in reverse order from the opening statements. We'll begin with David Hines.
Well, I'm not really sure how to close this out because there's a lot we can talk about. I appreciate the opportunities that I've had to be elected the past time. I look forward to hopefully continuing to serve. We again, as I said in my opening statement, we have a lot to do. It may seem like we don't, but if you pay attention, we absolutely do. You have to keep the momentum going. Again, it's not about me sitting up here. I sit up here to serve the people that elect me to be here. I look forward to the next 4 years and continuing on with what we're working to do. It may sound cliche, but it's very important. And, you know, again, it's not about me. It's about the people that live here. And you have to listen to that. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Next, we hear from Dylan Tillett.
I think some great topics were discussed here tonight. All in all, I believe the primary role of the Town of Kitty Hawk Council is to lead the town by making decisions, setting goals, and leading staff, all while keeping the people of Kitty Hawk and the citizens of Kitty Hawk as their top priority. As someone who has lived in Kitty Hawk their whole life, I've seen a lot of changes, some of them good and some of them not so good. I will take the trust that you give to me as councilman to proactively, intelligently, and passionately lead the town, community, and the citizens of this great place. You won't find anyone that loves Kitty Hawk more than I do. I ask for your support and your vote this November, and I appreciate your time here tonight. Lastly, I'd like to thank the League of Women's Voters again for hosting this forum and volunteering all their time and efforts to making this happen. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Dylan. Last, we'll hear from Ron Tumalo.
Thank you. Again, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. There's been a lot of information shared with you, and hopefully with some of you it's touched home or maybe touched a nerve in a good way. Again, like everybody up here, my wife and I chose to live here because this is where we want to spend our life, right? And we are concerned about a lot of what's going on here in Kitty Hawk, mostly good. But I do really want to stress that if I get the opportunity to be elected to town council, I will be the most hands-on town councilman you've ever seen, because I've never served in this capacity before, but I am so interested in what goes on here and how things work here. I'm interested in the infrastructure, right? Because we have such a big problem with the water flow here and the quality of our water. Our wastewater management is, for Dare County, it seems like a patchwork quilt. Some people have sewage, some people have septic, and some people have engineered systems, and it's really a challenge. And I think if we can get our hands wrapped around some of these big problems with infrastructure, a lot of these other things that we need that are plaguing the town might get accomplished a little bit easier. And I'll leave you with this as well. I mean, yeah, the signs out there that we're putting up all over the road say, you know, I'm running for town council. I want to be a councilman. Well, more than that, I'm running to get the work done as a member of this town council, and I look forward to getting that. And if I'm fortunate enough to get on the council, that would be a great opportunity. So with that, I humbly request your vote on November 7th, and everyone please have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Ron. That concludes the Town of Kitty Hawk's Candidate Forum. We wish to thank the candidates for their participation, the voters for their attendance and questions. We want to thank the Town of Kitty Hawk for the use of their meeting room and for videotaping this forum. We will post the video on our website, lwvdarenc.org, and on our YouTube page. The Dare County Current TV channel will broadcast the forum. Please check their websites for dates and times. I will now turn this meeting back to Jamie.
Thank you. Just a couple pieces of information towards the end related to the upcoming municipal election. Regarding League of Women Voters, we are also connected directly with Vote 411 as one of our channels. This year, we have asked all the candidates to participate in the League's online voter guide called vote411.org. This is a one-stop shop website that voters may access on their phone or on their PC. Key in your address and you can view your ballot, candidate information, their philosophy statement, social media links, and their responses in their own words to the questions we posed and more, excuse me. Please check it out. Also, in regards to this, 3 out of the 3 candidates this evening have already responded to their Vote 411 invitations. Thank you. This year, Vote 411 live date is scheduled for the start of early voting on October 19th, and our future scheduled forums still yet to come. On your way out, and if you didn't already receive, we have a rack card with not only the most recent voter ID information, which we'll get into here in just a minute, but most importantly, the forums yet to come, which is DUC, Thursday, October 12th. At 7 p.m. Might as well. It's the last one that we have. Remember, this year you will be required to present acceptable photo ID in order to vote, which we also have on our rack cards. Feel free to take with you, and some additional if you'd like to pass those around. Please and thank you. Again, refer to that flip side of the rack card, which has all of this information. This includes North Carolina's driver's license, the state ID from the NCDMV, also called the non-operator ID, your driver's license or non-driver ID form from another state, the District of Columbia or the U.S. territory, U.S. passport or U.S. passport card. The North Carolina voter photo ID card is issued by a county board of elections, the college or university student ID approved by the state board of elections, and for the state and local government or charter school employee ID approved by the State Board of Elections. Most importantly, if you do not have a photo ID card, you may obtain one from your County Board of Elections prior to the election through the end of early voting period, November 4th. If you have any questions regarding this, please contact the Dare County Board of Elections. Phone number provided. If you do not have a valid photo ID card on election day, you may still vote, and you may have your vote counted by signing an affidavit of reasonable impediment as to why you have not presented a valid photo ID. If you have any questions regarding this, please contact the Dare County Board of Elections at 252-475-5630. The last day to register to vote is Friday, October 13th, 2023 at 5 p.m. Registration forms are available on the table. If you miss this date, you may still register to vote at a one-stop early voting sites. Early voting begins Thursday, October 19th until Saturday, November 4th in 2 locations. The Dare County Administrative Building in Manio and Kill Devil Hills Town Hall in KDH. Absentee voting ballots may be requested now until October 31st up until 5 p.m., and the absentee ballots must be returned to the Board of Elections by November 7th, the election day at 5 p.m. We have some forms for that as well in the back, or you can request an absentee ballot online from the Board of Elections website. Of course, Election Day is Tuesday, November 7th at your assigned precinct, which will be here for y'all at Kitty Hawk Town Hall, 101 Veterans Memorial Drive. We encourage you to join us as we strive to defend democracy, and LWV membership applications are also on the information table. Thank you very much for coming, and thank you to you all.
Thank you. Thank you very much.